In any event, the more money you have relative to the amount of goods, the more inflation you have, and that's not good. So
we're not a free market then? There is an invisible, there's a benevolent hand that touches us.
Absolutely. You're quite correct. To the extent that there is a central bank governing the amount of money in the system, that is not a free market, and most people call it regulation.
And so when you lower the interest rate and drive money to the stocks, that lowers the return people get on savings
Yes,
in a bank.
Indeed, yes, indeed.
So they've made a choice. We would like to favor those who invest in the stock market and not those who invest in a bank. That helps us.
No, that's the way it comes out, but that's not the way they think about it.
This is a major problem because savings results in increased investment, additional research and development, a stronger economy, and an improvement in our overall standard of living. Is America's low savings rate today strictly a matter of personal choice? Or are there also other forces at play here?
Dr. Paul.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, Mr. Greenspan. I understand that you did not take my friendly advice last fall. I thought maybe you should look for other employment, but I see you kept your job. I'm pleased that you're back, though, because at least you remember the days of sound money.
In the early 70s, due to the breakdown of the monetary system, it excited me enough to want to speak out.
The concern a sound money economist has is for the supply of money. If you increase the supply of money, you have inflation. I know Wall Street likes it, and the economy likes it when the bubble's getting bigger, but I think it's harmful.
Inflation is very simple. When government arbitrarily, out of thin air, prints money, creates money and credit out of thin air. And when I talk to many teenagers, grade schoolers, they seem to have no problem comprehending the fact that if you just create a lot of money, it'll be like monopoly money and won't have value.
Dr. Paul, you're raising an issue which a significant number of people have been raising over the years, and for which, frankly, we're not quite sure what the answers are.
Alan Greenspan was the chairman of the Federal Reserve Board. I see the central bank, the Federal Reserve System, as having this tremendous power over money and credit. Greenspan, or any chairman of the Federal Reserve Board, is more powerful than even our president because he has so much control over the economy. Many countries have bitten the dust through the inflation, even in ancient times. This is a very serious problem, and the biggest fear will be that if the Fed creates too much money, we're going to have a crash of the dollar.
And for 3 years, you've never been once in the target range. You know, if I set my targets and I perform like that as a physician, my patient would die.
Is the gentleman finished? Yeah, thank you very much, Dr. Paul. Mr. Watts.
Thank you, Mr.
Chairman. Because the value of your saved dollar can be impacted by the money supply, any talk of savings is incomplete without discussing the Fed. The Federal Reserve is the primary force in determining our nation's money supply. This is known as monetary policy, and it should not be confused with what is called fiscal policy, which relates to tax and spending policies set by the Congress. The Fed's two main policy goals are, first, to help stimulate economic growth, and second, to try to keep inflation low. These goals can conflict. When the Fed determines that the economy needs a stimulus, interest rates are lowered, borrowing becomes easier, and more money flows into the economy. This is known as opening the Fed window, and the result is an increase of the money supply. When inflation is rising, which means that the dollar is quickly losing value, the Fed raises interest rates, borrowing becomes more expensive, and money eventually flows out of the economy. This closing of the Fed window decreases the money supply. Severe inflation requires a very tight monetary policy, which often leads to increased unemployment and greater reliance on personal savings. In a worst-case scenario, the economy can become stagnant and inflation can increase, a situation called stagflation. The Fed is then faced with an extremely difficult choice because it can't raise interest rates and lower them at the same time. It must choose either to stimulate the economy or to fight inflation. This last happened in the 1970s, and it was a very difficult time for our country.
I was in the Nixon White House, first as an economic advisor to President Nixon, and then as Secretary of Commerce. Well, I think history will record that Federal Reserve was part of the problem. They let money supply get out of control. When Paul Volcker took over, he realized the need for tough action. But it's hard for many people to believe that interest rates were, as I recall, at the extraordinary level of 15 to 20% annually. And he had to take truly courageous action, and he did.
That's a book for you. Poor Richard's Almanac. It was an introduction by Paul A. Volcker. I recommend it to you at your nearest bookstore. I think one of the lessons of that period, and these lessons have to be learned and relearned, is don't let the inflation get started, because once it gets some momentum, it's kind of feeling that it's inevitable, we'll find ourselves back in the days of stagflation and unacceptable economic performance, and very difficult to deal with. There's a little flavor of that at the moment.
This is an NBC News special report.
All kinds of economic indicators turning south. New foreclosure stats out today and the like. Tim, these are tough times for the president to face the press.
He is hearing it from everybody in his own party, the opposition party, and from the American people. Prices are skyrocketing, and they're asking, what's the government going to do about it?
With respect to the fiscal crisis looming out there in the future, we'll see whether a democracy can deal with an obvious problem that's going to be present in not too many years, and the earlier we take action to deal with it, the better.
This bigger. This is about Bernanke. This is about Bernanke. He has to be on that call. Forget the investors. The investors are going to do. If Bernanke listens, Bernanke needs to open the discount window. That's how bad things are out there. Bernanke needs to focus on this. Alan Greenspan told everyone to take a teaser rate and then raise the rate 17 times. And Bernanke is being an academic. It is no time to be an academic. Listen, open the darn Fed window. He has no idea how bad it is out there. He has no idea. He has no idea.
Kramer.
I have talked to the heads of almost every single one of these firms in the last 72 hours, and he has no idea what it's like out there. None! My people have been in this game for 25 years, and they are losing their jobs, and these firms are going to go out of business, and he's nuts! They're nuts! They know nothing!
Kramer.
This is a different kind of market, and the Fed is asleep!
There are three types of people in our country: those who save and invest, those who could easily save more but choose not to, and those for whom savings is very difficult. If Federal Reserve policy creates strong economic growth and keeps inflation low, everyone can benefit. However, if inflation rises, people who are less well off will suffer more.
The Federal Reserve seeks solely to get as high a level of real material well-being as we can by setting a platform of stability. We cannot pick and choose amongst various areas of the population because we just have no means of doing that. If fiscal policy is lax or savings are exceptionally low, there is nothing monetary policy or any central bank can do about that. We cannot live in the present only. Human beings cannot survive unless they create provision for the future.
Americans must start to save again, and they need to invest those savings to help create a better future for themselves, their families, and our country. At the same time, Americans need to know that the money that they are saving will hold its value. Too much easy credit for too long can create a false sense of wealth. No one plays a more important role in all of this than the Federal Reserve.
I think I got